Hey guys! So today's video is something that I have been wanting to do for so long on this channel, and that is a DIY build for a large wing set. I'm going to show you from start to finish how to build your own wireframe, attach it to your body, and apply numerous amounts of feathers to get the look you are after. I will specifically be referencing the Rocketman wings, which is from the Elton John movie. This video is sponsored and in collaboration with The Feather Place, which has Zucker Feather products. They sent me the feathers to build this beautiful set, and I'm going to go over kind of which ones I was using in this tutorial. If you found your way to this video because you are looking to build your own set of feathered wings, please check them out. They have numerous products, some pre-built, so if you maybe don't want to do the whole steps of building your own wireframe, your own wing set, you definitely have some on the website that you can pick up for yourself. Numerous different colors. They do custom dyeing, so if you have specific things that you need and you can't find anywhere else, this is definitely a place to check out. I really enjoyed getting to work with them and build this, and I really hope you guys enjoy this tutorial and how to build. So please keep watching if you're interested, and let's just jump right into it. So first thing we want to do is figure out the shape of the wings we're going to be building and the wireframe that's going to support it. So to do this, I quickly laid out some paper on my basement floor and just taped it down so I would have room to sketch. And then from there, you want to sketch out a U-bend shape that will be a good support for the wings. My wings that I'm building are kind of in a heart shape and then flare out, so I started building that up. And once I pulled the wing shape out, I also made sure to cross it back over the U. This will just offer a lot of support and extra stability to the wireframe. And of course, you can be sure to measure the exact size you need. You can just draw out one side and then flip it to make the other one if you want it to be perfectly symmetrical. I just freehanded mine, but you can do whatever you want for your base. And then I use two types of wires. One that's very accessible that you can find just about anywhere is wire hangers. They have a very strong wire frame to them, so all I do is cut off the top pieces since that twist is going to be too annoying to try and unravel. And then I just use a pair of needle nose pliers to help straighten them out and get them as malleable as I can for moving on to the next steps. And then a trick I really like to strengthen wire to make it as doubly strong as it normally would be is to fold it in half, stick the two loose ends into the end of a drill bit, and tighten it as you would a actual bit that would be in it. And then hook it over something. For me, I'm just using a clamp on my desk, and you actually just twist it until it is nice and tight around itself, and now it is double as strong as when it started. So those pieces will come in handy later on, but to start making the full wireframe, I'm using galvanized wire. This was from the gardening section in the dollar store, so again, really accessible. Basically just any kind of armature wire. And I started folding this along the shape that I had sketched out on the floor. I also started using tape to kind of flatten down certain areas as I move, since it kind of wants to obviously do its own thing and roll up on you, so encouraging it to stay in place with a little bit of tape does definitely help. And then once you go all the way around the wireframe, I met up back at the U-bend, which is where I started, and I just doubled it up on itself so it would have a very good overlap in that area so it doesn't ever want to separate from itself. And then the two parts where it crosses, I did just take a bit of very thin 20 gauge wire, so it's almost like metal thread at this point, and I used that to kind of just knot those two connection points so that they would be better secured and offer a bit more support in that area. But you can also just do the same thing with some tape, whether it's electrical tape or I'm using painter tapes throughout all of this. Whatever you want to use would work just as well right here. And then with the painter's tape, I actually use this to first go over that U-bend overlap where the galvanized wire hit itself again in the original frame base. And then this is where I brought back in the stronger twisted up wire hangers that we did earlier. This I added to the areas where I think need the most support in the wings, and that is right along that center spine piece. So I started in the U-bend as well and went up over that cross and then pulled it up along the edges of the inner curls. This again, just because these are the areas you really want to reinforce because they're going to be taking a lot of weight of all the feathers that go on top. And then I just wrapped all of it up with the painter's tape. Again, any tape here works. This is just to make sure that the wire stays stuck together. We are going to wrap it at the very end, but this is just kind of so you can layer it up. And these are the three main areas I added those extra wires. You can kind of get it close up here and see what it looks like. And then the next step, while a little bit tedious, was actually to kind of remake the entire wire frame and do it all over again with the same galvanized wire we did the original frame with. Do the exact same thing and then tape it to itself all the way around. This again is just a way to strengthen wire. You could just buy a stronger wire, which you definitely can do. You can go up and it's a lower gauge would be a stronger wire. It's just going to be less malleable, so you may want stronger tools. You may have to have a little bit more muscle. This is a way that you can kind of cheat it if you want something that's a little bit easier to work with by hand. So there are different ways to go about this for sure, but I'm just using a way that at least makes it so you could probably go out and make this yourself. And then I actually went all the way around again with that 20 gauge almost thread wire and wrapped the entire painter's tape section. So again, one extra step of reinforcement and make sure that it'll hold in place. And then for this part, I just wanted to add a few little extra almost bracing wires in certain areas. I did 3 on each side, and this is one, again, definitely depending on what feathers you're going to use. If you're going to be using really heavy feathers, I would say maybe do this all the way across the wings. I've seen people do it with chicken wire across the entire mesh of the wings. You definitely could do that as well. Just extra ways to strengthen that area. And again, I'm constantly reinforcing this U-bend right in the center because that is where it's going to be right up pressed against your back, and that's where it's going to be taking most of the pressure of the wings. So you want to make that as reinforced as possible so that it will not collapse on you once you are in the feathering stage. And so those I just folded around with a pair of pliers and then made sure to really press in the loose piece that exists once you cut it, because you don't want a jagged piece of wire sticking out that can accidentally cut you. And then a good way to ensure that no wires can stick out and cut you as well is something I did was take upholstery foam, which is something you can find at most fabric stores. And I just cut it into strips and then sewed it on with a simple loop stitch all the way around the wire frame. This helps protect against all of the wire that's around it, as well as makes it so later on we can put fabric on top a lot easier, and that fabric and foam will be what the feathers are going to get glued onto. If you are in a time crunch, you could go ahead and probably just do this with some hot glue. This sewing method is tedious. It just ensures that it's definitely not going to go anywhere and it's going to be very, very secure. But you can obviously cut corners where you need to depending on the timeline of your project. And then with that complete, I wanted a center portion to be the main frame for the interior of my wings. So I just took a big chunk of the upholstery foam and cut out what I needed. And then I sewed this on all the way around, attaching to the foam I had already put around the edges. And for this, I kind of just did like certain stitches in important areas. I didn't actually go all the way around. And that's just because I was going to be going around with the fabric and I knew I'd be extra securing it that way. I probably wouldn't glue this one just because this is going to be getting bent. And if it's with a hard glue like a hot glue, then it might actually separate on you when you start bending the wings into a shape you want. And if you're like me, you'll be lucky and have a very helpful partner every time you pull out thread. And then just to close up for you guys, this is kind of what it looked like when I would do my little simple stitches around the edges to attach the foam to itself. And then my last step for the frame bill was to take a fabric. This is, I think, like a gift wrapping fabric that I found again at the dollar store. I tried to make everything kind of be a dollar store trip. And for this, I just pinned it down all the way around where I wanted it to sit. And then I went ahead, and this is probably the most tedious, was truly went all the way around the edges and sewed it into place. And I did it for both sides. So I actually had to kind of do this twice. You could absolutely do this with something with more stretch. This fabric does not have any give. And you could also run this through a sewing machine if you have one in the shape and kind of just slip it over the wing as opposed to having to sew it individually around. But I again just wanted to show you that even without a sewing machine, without any real sewing skills, you definitely can do this, because this is just going around and around in circles in a spiral shape along the edges with the thread. Of course, I did the one side, so got to flip it over and do the other. So right now, I'm just placing in where the straps will go. I'm using these that I found at the dollar store called stretch utility straps for like backpacks and stuff, but super cheap. So I grabbed 3 sets of these so that I have 6 straps total. because they're not quite long enough on their own to use one for the whole connection. And it's just being held by some pins right now. This is so you can figure out on yourself what really is the best size for it. So this one is the bottom piece that connects up to this guy and makes an arm strap essentially. So these two up here go around your arms, and then this one is just kind of one for extra support. It's going to connect across to this side, and that is to go essentially across your chest, and that's just to give it a little bit extra stability and kind of hold it in place against your back. But just going to sew these down, hand sew these down, same way we did with all of the detailing along here. And then from there you can go ahead and attach it to yourself. Mine's just on the mannequin because this is where I worked on building it. And so you can see how the one strap comes around the shoulders, although this mannequin doesn't really have shoulders, so mine's kind of pinned on so that it doesn't just fall off. And then the bottom one that goes underneath or across the chest for that extra support. And then the other reason I was using backpack straps, you could just do this as one piece. I have it so that you can kind of adjust it when it's on yourself a little bit more, but you could make it one piece. You don't have to make it be Velcroed, just whatever works best for you. And then just to quickly go over the feathers with you before I get into the applying portion, just because it's a little hard to tell and fully break down in the sped up version. I just want to kind of break down the different sections of what are on here. Along the bottom here, where the biggest guys are, they are some of the strongest and widest feathers. All of these ones, and that are along the edge down there. These are turkey quill flats. They look like this. And you can see when I am applying them that I always cut off the big end piece since it's kind of not useful on the wing build. And something to always be aware of with certain feathers, especially something like turkey quills, they actually have a left and a right. So when you're ordering, make sure you are getting even of both, because you need different ones for each side. Like those will not work over there, so you need these guys. And same with those over there. So those are what I used all along the bottom. The ones that are all along here, you see me use a lot of them because they're really beautiful. They have numerous transition colors. They have anywhere from red to black fades, different patterning, everything in between. And these are Rooster Coque tails, and these are actually, one of the options on the site is having like custom dye jobs, and these are just like stunning to work with. You get a ton in a row. This is not even a full one. This is just one that I had from like using. And so you can kind of go through and pick out different ones you need for different areas, but you can see how they all have different patternings, different sizes, and it really works for adding variety across the wings. The other ones I used are also Rooster Coque tails, and these are the black ones. I will have everything in the description for you guys to really break down what all the names are and how long they are, but these two are the longest ones I was using, the custom dyed and the black ones. And these are the ones that I used for all the areas along the top where I really needed those foldovers. I needed the feathers to just do what they wanted to do. So I needed that length and that softness from them. And then the last thing I was using was just a version of pure red and black Coque tails as well. These are shorter ones. These ones were amazing for filling in space. They're incredibly soft feathers, so they have the same fall, but they allow you to work in different areas that don't need as crazy length, and you don't want to have to just buy the long ones and then cut them down, because then you feel like you're going to be wasting the beautiful length of the big guy. So these are ones I used all in areas like here, all the small sections in the centerpiece, as well as the pure red ones were fantastic for building out the outer sections on the wings all around here. So I hope that kind of breaks it down a little bit easier where all the feathers are going. I'm going to show you how I apply them as I move throughout. And so let's jump into applying. So to start with, these wings are interesting because a lot of wings, when they fall directly down, you actually just start at the bottom and go all the way up. But because these ones actually have directions, they all meet at the center point that I kind of drew on a little sketch for myself so I would know. You have to almost work all the way along the outside and meet in the middle of the center portion of the wing. So to do that, I started at the top using the Rooster Coque tails in both the black, red, and the custom dye ones. And you can see I was just following the shape of the wings and making sure to only apply about 2 inches or even just an inch of glue at the very base of the feathers. That way, there's not much glue on them to add weight, as well as it will let the feathers just fall and do whatever they want to do naturally. Something I realized I recorded from the other side but forgot to do with the side I'm currently working on was just that I did add a little extra craft foam appliance almost to this with just some hot glue. Craft foam is a really cheap, like 2mm foam that you can find in nearly any craft store, most dollar stores. And I just added a little extra extension here because I realized the back of the wings have a bit more of a curl than I'd built into my frame. So you definitely could just do the frame correctly. But if you have something like this where you realize you need a little bit extra on certain areas, you can actually go ahead and do a little craft foam sandwich to give yourself a bit more room. As I was explaining before, the bottom I went in with the turkey quills, which are the much stiffer ones, and so those just kind of go in an order beside each other. Again, having a good amount of glue for these ones. They are heavier feathers, so you want to make sure they're really secured. And just slowly angling everything towards that center portion of the spine of the wing. Using the die ones as transition, using the smaller ones as we get closer to that center portion, and just filling in everything that needs to be filled in. And then moving to the front of the wings, it's pretty much the same process. I started on the bottom for this one. Doesn't really matter where you start, as long as you're moving from the outside to the inside. Laying down all the turkey quills. Again, making sure that you're having the right, left, or right, whichever one you need. And be sure to flip the feathers on the side. On the back, we were angling them so the outside of the feathers was on the outside, as you would expect. And so this is the reverse. You just need to flip the feathers so you have the inside showing, so they curl naturally inwards and make a proper wing shape. And because I wasn't sure if I said it, I am just using hot glue for all of this. Again, you want to try and limit how much you use because every bit of glue you add on is weight. You want to make sure your feathers are secured, but also don't go crazy with glue because you're just adding weight to your wings. And then honestly, I equate this kind of to like just Tetrising and puzzling as you go. I kept holding up feathers in different areas, as you can see, just to see how they would fall if I glued them down, what feels like it works best, looking at your reference photos if you're referencing a specific set of wings, and it's literally just playing with it until you start getting something that you are really liking. The outside of these wings tend to have the brightest red, so I use that as kind of my outside curl to also show me where the feather direction should go. You can see right around that curl, you have to start angling the feathers the opposite way. So you want to try and make it as gradual as possible, almost like a V shape with how the feathers branch out at the top there, so that it's a really nice flow around the curve of the wing. Something else I also did that you can see right here is I did apply feathers right along the spine because the frame itself is still going to be a little bit thick. It's about ½ an inch. And so if you don't put something over it, then possibly by the very side, if someone was to view your wings from the very side, they might see your frame showing through. So you can just cheat it by gluing some feathers along the whole spine. And then if they did catch anything, it would just be the color of your feathers anyways. These wings have a cluster of black towards the center portion, so this is where the transition, the custom dye ones really came in handy for moving the red into the black and then making sure the black was kind of localized to that one section so that they give a really strong impact from the interior of the wings. And then like the last thing I showed when I was explaining the different feather uses, as you get to kind of this portion, it tends to be almost entirely the smaller ones that become really handy. They have more bend to them because they're so soft, so they're easy to be a little bit more malleable in this section. So you can kind of meet them all in that V shape, but then also lay them over each other so that it looks like a natural transition into the very bottom portion. At this point, I do flip a few of the feathers right side out just to make sure I'm covering and giving a nice flow right in this tiny section that you won't really notice, but I do try to keep most of the feathers in their inside out direction so that they are correct on this side of the wings. And there you have it, your very own set of Rocketman wings. Hopefully this video can give you some ideas of how to build your own set of definitely much larger wings than you usually can pick up at Halloween time or in usual costume stores. Also how to make a frame that can fit whatever shape you are looking for and to have it be secured. I really, again, just want to thank Feather Place for sponsoring this video and sending over so many beautiful feathers. They were a total joy to work with, super easy to work with, which was amazing. And again, if you guys are even looking for stuff that's completely different than what we built today, please check out the website. They have tons and tons of available pre-made items that you can pick up for costuming or whatever you're looking for, as well as, of course, individual feather buying options. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments down below, as well as please check out the description box. I'm going to have even more information there for you guys and anything that you might have a few questions on. But yeah, thank you guys as always so much for watching. I, of course, will see you next video. So until then, bye guys.